Gaming as a hobby was one of the best and worst things to happen to me. I was given friends and a community to hang out with, and it made me feel normal. I had games that could give me an escape, but gaming can become a weapon that you can turn on yourself, or someone can turn it on you. In this vid, I'll give you personal examples and most likely give what I think is the best way to try and navigate these issues, at least how I did it, and more specifically, how to gain all of the good that can come from gaming as a hobby, but then try to avoid all of the pits that you can dig for yourself, or avoid the ones that could be dug for you. This is a good way to rebuild the channel, right? It's just dark, brooding, serious. Let's just try to get through it quickly, huh? I grew up on a real farm. Like, no animals, usually, except like cows at times. It was a tough life. Good times were good, and the bad times were bad. My parents were great. If I wanted something, by God, I was going to get it, even in times where they told me that they were tight on money. They still found ways to buy me a new computer monitor and all of the latest gaming consoles, headsets, chairs. I can't stress enough, we are not a rich family, and I think the typical way many would see this story end was one of me being quite lazy, expecting everything to be handed to me. But honestly now, I was lazy, yes, but on top of this, I felt empty and guilty about everything. Gaming was the thing I wanted to do. I loved looking into the design of games, playing Mass Effect or Fallout New Vegas, and it made me fall in love with RPGs with real player choice in them. And I spent a lot of time on video games. I would spend hours in middle school and high school, on school nights till 4 in the morning, to then wake up in 4 hours for school. It was not healthy, but it was very insane. I think all of us have great stories of staying up late at night to play with friends, but all of this crept up on me and made me wish I had spent a few more hours sleeping or even just doing homework. I wish I had just focused on school just even a bit more, and that subject, school, could be replaced with a lot of different things that I didn't focus on, as I never focused on what I now considered important. Gaming was the one thing that made me feel better. From that and food, of course, as I began to quite quickly gain weight as I got my first car. Gaming was the thing that I focused on, and it was the only thing that made me feel better. But it ultimately wasn't enough. I was at my biggest of 325 pounds. I was never working out, never on any dates, no social life I could latch on to except for people on the internet, but the worst thing was the regrets I began to have after graduating high school, because I knew what I should have been doing, but I was scared to do them. I flunked out of community college, then almost flunked out of another. I was anxious, empty, depressed. My room was filled with trash food, like fast food boxes. I only wanted to play video games. Though always in the back of my mind was the thought of knowing what I need to do to fix things, but I couldn't or wouldn't, as gaming was the easiest option. It's the thing I used to get my thoughts away from all of that stress, and trying to sleep at night with those thoughts constantly racing through my head, it made sleeping impossible. So I stayed up playing video games all night and day. I was in a very toxic loop, and from 18 to 28, I feel like I wasted my life. And I can't say it on the video, but I think we can all guess the only option I thought I had at this point. Gaming had an effect on me, and even today, it does have effects on others. Though gaming is not the catalyst that instills aggressive behaviors that aren't there to begin with, but even a kernel of that behavior is there, gaming can cause and help develop the habits that make aggression the go-to response for many situations. Games are still insisting on the use of mobile game-like systems or mechanics, perpetuating gambling disorders, and overall you're more likely to develop a myriad of physical health issues alongside mental health issues, BMI and dietary behaviors especially, regardless of whether you're hungry or not, and the lack of impulse control associated with long-term overindulgence in gaming can lead to a serious lack of achievement in many areas, especially school. Alongside serious sleep issues, adding on to that main issue, of course, Many of these are much more common in those with gaming addiction, and those with this addiction don't make up a large portion of those who even play video games. However, I think we can all recognize the issue, which is the addictiveness and the way in which we engage in this hobby, and our inability to either stop ourselves or look at ourselves and try to change those habits due to either a lack of support or structure in our lives, essentially. This is going to be the controversial section. Gaming as a hobby can introduce you to many new people in your life, whether you watch their videos or they're friends who you play those games with. But what happens when people start using gaming to get a foot in the door, so to speak? I literally just did this with the last part. I slowly bring a person in using gaming as a topic that we both enjoy, and I can use that to start talking about, whatever I want with you. I can introduce you to some things that you may never have heard of. And suddenly, me and you, we don't just play video games anymore. We do a lot more together now. It takes a long time to truly know someone. Going out on 3 dates, say, is not enough to know if you should marry someone. And hundreds of hours of games played together with a person, it's not enough to know if you should get closer to them. But many times this is how bad decisions form. When you have few friends like I did, it's easy to be introduced to ideas and people with the endorsement of my friend, the person I trust and play games with. They endorsed Jordan Peterson. Many of my previous online friends said, I needed to hear from this guy. He's talking to us. Peterson told me to start small and clean my room. He is very correct. It is a good way to begin. However, it's that trust that then makes you get lazy. Jordan Peterson is a personality who focuses on right-wing talking points, and I vehemently disagree with him on many things today. However, back then, that one point helped me so much that I trusted him, which made me not really think of any of his points when he said something. I just believed it wholeheartedly. There was no process through which I questioned if I did agree with him on anything or not. But that's not Peterson's fault, that's my laziness. But we really went down a rabbit hole, didn't we? Where'd this start? Right. By just playing a video game with someone. By just having the right person at the right time introduce you to one idea at that time. And just from that, you could go from communist to alt-righter so easily. Just from that one moment in time where you have full trust in someone, and from then on, you're just kind of there now. NPR ran a story about a father named John. John describes the experience of his young son being brought into one of these very extreme communities. John's son played Csgo. He would play online with his friends, and John simply took it in stride. This is how kids interact nowadays. There wasn't anything obvious to me at first because it's common. This is the norm for kids. Instead of hanging out at the drive-in, they're all online. Yet, John says his son started gaming with avowed, out-and-out white supremacists. John noted that these online friends would hear the problems he had at school and pick out African American kids at the school as the issue. John says his son said he started to feel like he was in on something. He was now the in crowd with these guys. It provided some structure and identity that he was searching for at the time. John described his reaction as, I was through the roof, and then I went back into my room. John said he was crying. He felt like a failure, that a child of his that he had raised would be remotely interested in that sort of stuff. He then reached out to a group that focused on de-radicalizing people, called the Free Radicals Project. One of the people who spoke with John was a reformed white supremacist himself, and he noted that, I saw how these groups communicated and spread out to other spaces online, with the intent of not telling people specifically that they were white supremacists, but they were really trying to figure out what young men were angry about and how they could leverage that to bring about a broad-based social movement. Specifically, violent first-person shooter games, she says, are one place to find angry young men. She calls gaming culture one of the spaces of recruitment that must be addressed. She even talked about how you address these issues and de-radicalize people. Piccolini, the woman here, says ultimately unwinding the influence of these groups over young people takes love and acceptance. he counseled John to find out what his son's personal struggles were. He calls them potholes, as John put it. He's missing something, so find out what those potholes are and fill those with something positive and healthy. And that's the way to steer them out of all of this. Thankfully, this was successful, and John's son seemed to have left those ideas behind at the time of filming anyway. A pit was dug for John's son, and thankfully with serious support and structure, if you don't have this, it gets harder to begin the process. And one of the things this hateful group might have likely used was the young man's fear of losing his friends that gaming provided. A group to spend time with that made him feel welcome. Gaming is just another thing being used against people who otherwise would have grown up into healthy people, mentally and physically, and instead are thrown into a pit they may never get out of. It's important to be able to say there are issues with our favorite hobby, and doing what we can to fix them, to draw out all of the positives and leave as many of the negatives as possible behind, is very important for everyone. Heck, I did papers during my bachelor's degree on what happens to the brain when experiencing chronic stress with no relief. Look up brain remodeling. It's a very crazy phenomenon. I feel like I found a good balance today in terms of my engagement with gaming. The number one thing for me was starting small. Clean your room, even if it takes a week for you to fully clean it. Even if you only clean one corner of the room, you did it. Now you build on it. If you have homework to do, even if you only did one problem on the page, you did it. Now that's something to build on. You wanna say something? Look at this. I heard a story from Jerry Seinfeld. All you Gen Zers are really gonna know who he is, huh? About how he was struggling to keep up or actually do his work. He was being lazy. He got a calendar, and every day he wrote at least like one joke. He thought about it or anything like that. He would cross off a day. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, if you look at this, I started before this. This is the second calendar, actually. So we've got all of May. I did at least one thing. And some of these days I actually started doing more than one thing. So it was a lot of like habits being built over time. And I think that gaming, and this was just June when I was recording all of these. I mean, this one little thing, like it's stuck in my brain as to like, no, it's easy. I can do like one script, or I can do half a script, or I can, clean part of my room. I can take care of these things. I can go to bed on time. You can do all of these things. And I don't know if this works for you. I don't know if it'll ever work for anyone else but me. This actually visually satisfied me. Like when I did something, the satisfaction of crossing off a day on this stupid paper calendar that I still do today. Like sometimes I didn't even finish a full script in a day. I would just do part of it, or I would plan part of a video and then be done. I did it. And nowadays, God, I'm doing 2 scripts a day. I'm doing all this stuff. I mean, I feel like I've gotten my life in order. I did college work. I would cross off a day because I did what I was supposed to do. I did the things that were going to make me successful. Yeah, it's so, God, it's so cringy, but it works. That's how I got out of the pit that was dug by me. I also had support from my mother very heavily, in that I was able to get antidepressants and things like that. I don't know what you call them, but it's like a drug similar to Adderall, because I found that I was like really like low energy, and like these made me feel normal and stuff like that. And antidepressants made it to where I could think again. It made it to where I could do what I wanted to do. I could get rid of all of that stress and then just focus on not getting away or running from those thoughts of like what I need to do, but more so like actually start thinking about when can I do them? How should I start? And now I'm not on anything. Like I don't need anything now, because I feel the happiest I have been in such a long time. And it's such a good feeling to know that I can engage in this hobby that I love and that I love talking about now, and know that I'm responsible enough to handle it now. And I'm not perfect, still pretty lazy, but eventually I'll do the thing I need to do. I hope people are able to find the resources they need, because even if I disagree with Jordan Peterson quite a bit, on quite a lot. Starting small, cleaning your room, it's good advice. It's where I started from, and you know, a lot of small steps later, I feel the happiest I have been in a long time. And I want others to just feel the same. Just one little step every day. And it builds down this stress in your mind of doing that one thing you know you don't want to do. And it just makes it so much easier to do it afterwards. And seek support in whatever you need to. The first thing you can do is ask. If you ask and look for help, then hopefully you'll find it. So, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe today, as I already have several vids being written, filmed, and edited right now. Actually, I've got most of them written, so we're just filming now and doing all that stuff. Thinking about doing a season release thing, like content being churned out weekly. The current schedule I've got is every Friday you will have one of these vids, the Wise Words videos, uploading at 1 p.m. Central Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time. During the week, I'm hopefully looking at 2 smaller vids, going over a bunch of different things like news, little reviews, first impressions vids. I've even got ideas about doing mini Wise Words stuff, like much less edited than this, going over like breaking news topics and stuff like that. And I swear, I'm much funnier than this, than I got to show here, because everything was so serious, but yeah. So, subscribe today, all that jazz. Bye. Love you. I don't love you. I mean, I love you, like, as a friend, but, like, not... Yeah.